Sometimes it seems that animals can sense and see much more than humans. This unusual wolf refused to leave the dead girl. Doctors had to intervene, and soon they discovered a shocking and terrifying truth. When people looked at beautiful Julia in her wedding dress, lying in a coffin, everyone burst into tears. The guests were supposed to witness her walking to the altar, radiant and happy on her wedding day. Instead, they found themselves at her funeral. Suddenly, a wolf ran into the room, jumped into the coffin, and refused to move. Deeply distressed, John begged the wolf to leave, but the animal didn't respond to his words. John suddenly remembered the moment he first met Julia. She absolutely loved the forest and often went hiking. It helped her breathe more easily after escaping the suffocating city, which always made her painful epilepsy worse. One day, after a long hike, Julia was resting in her tent when she heard a faint, pitiful whimper outside. She peeked out and saw a tiny puppy that looked weak and helpless. Julia rushed to help the little one, but the moment she picked it up, she realized it wasn't a puppy, it was a wolf cub. She grew tense, worried that the mother might be nearby. A protective wolf could behave unpredictably and be extremely dangerous. But minutes passed, and the mother didn't appear. The cub looked at Julia with hungry, pleading eyes and let out soft cries. Julia quickly understood something had happened to the mother. The lost cub wouldn't survive in the wild without help. She took the cub home, fed him warm, nutritious milk, and soon he curled up on a blanket and fell asleep. Julia knew she couldn't raise a wild animal on her own, one that would eventually grow into a full-sized predator. She brought the cub, whom she named Charlie, to the nearest wildlife shelter. A kind worker named John promised they'd take care of Charlie and allowed Julia to visit him a few times a week. Julia gladly agreed, and whenever she had free time, she went to the shelter to visit the growing wolf. Over time, Julia grew close not only to Charlie, but also to kind-hearted John. They shared many interests, especially a love for nature and animals. Together, they cared for Charlie, treating him like a large dog. The wolf, in turn, responded with affection, grateful for his rescue. When John proposed to Julia, she happily accepted, and they set a wedding date. Julia adored her wedding dress. It made her look stunning and graceful. But her illness shattered all their plans. When John arrived at Julia's house, he was horrified to find her lifeless body on the bed. A familiar doctor soon confirmed that she had passed away from epilepsy. John couldn't hold back his tears. Instead of marrying his beloved, he now had to bury her. He decided to dress her in the wedding gown she had dreamed of wearing. On the day of the funeral, John and the guests were devastated. Seeing his beautiful bride in a coffin in her wedding dress was unbearable. John knew that Charlie had also loved Julia, so he brought the wolf to say goodbye. But when Charlie entered the hall and saw Julia's body, he reacted in a completely unexpected way. He ran to the open coffin, jumped in, and refused to leave. Neither John nor anyone else could convince him to move. Sensing that something was wrong, John called emergency services. The arriving doctors were surprised, but after John's repeated pleas, they agreed to examine Julia one more time. Suddenly, one of the doctors gasped and whispered something to his colleagues. They placed Julia on a stretcher, took her to the ambulance, and rushed to the hospital, with a shocked John following behind. Minutes later, they arrived at the emergency room, where Julia was immediately admitted. One doctor explained to John, his voice trembling, that Julia had been mistakenly declared dead. She had suffered from catalepsy, a rare condition in which all signs of life become nearly undetectable. It's one of the rarest symptoms of epilepsy. The person appears to be dead. Their breathing becomes so shallow it's almost non-existent. The heartbeat is nearly imperceptible. and the limbs become stiff as if in rigor mortis. Fortunately, Charlie had sensed that his owner was still alive and didn't let her be buried alive. After several hours, doctors managed to revive Julia, and miraculously, her brain had not been damaged by the lack of oxygen. Soon, Julia regained consciousness. When John told her what had happened, she broke into tears and couldn't believe it. All she could think was that she owed her life to the wolf, a creature she once saved, who had now returned the favor in the most miraculous way. John and Julia eventually got married. And of course, the most honored guest at the wedding was their loyal wolf, Charlie. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.